Stay tuned for another episode of Voice of Rio. Hello and welcome to Voice of Rio. I'm Dean Heather Duda, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at the University of Rio Grande Community College. You will notice that I am without my counterpart, Dean Donna Mitchell, Dean of the College of Professional and Technical Studies today. So I will do my best to manage without her as we go through today's episode, where we got a couple of great faculty guests. We're going to interview a new faculty member as well as talk to a returning faculty member who had a pretty exciting summer opportunity with her students. It's a great day here at Rio, but then again, what day isn't? School is in full swing and we're starting the concert season, so we have some great musical performances coming up. The sports teams are doing a wonderful job and the campus is very active. And so without further ado, I know we've got a lot from our two faculty members today, so I'd like to introduce everyone to Dr. Corey Sherlborough, Sports and Exercise Management, and my big question is, did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Oh,
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Welcome. You are a new faculty member this semester. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you here to Rio?
Sure. When I saw the kind of details of what I'll be speaking on today, it said, comes to us with an interesting background. So I figured I would just kind of hit on that. I grew up in Grandview Heights, Columbus, Ohio. I went to Ohio State for my undergrad, studied nutrition and community health promotion, went on to Ohio University, not too far from here, studied coaching education, and then I went on and did my doctorate of education at United States Sports Academy with an emphasis in leadership. So that's, I guess, the educational background I kind of went down. When you look at my professional aspect, I've been in and out of academia and within, I guess, in the trenches portion of sports and exercise studies over the last 12, 15 years. Started out at a very small private training facility, mostly focused on youth athletes. Did that while I was going to school for my master's degree. And then I went from there to work for the U.S. Army, where I was a private contractor for 2.5 years. So they hired us as civilian subject matter experts to come in and work with United States soldiers to help prepare them for essentially the rigors of war, everything to do with the non-killing part. So jump, not get hurt, sprint, eat right. So the morning was always out on the PT field or physical training field or in the weight room. And then the afternoon was 4 hours of a lot like what we do here, traditional lecturing and examination. So we made them kind of copies or train your trainer, and then they would go back to their units and disseminate that knowledge. Then went on to the United States Sports Academy, where I worked on my doctorate work. I was a doctoral teaching assistant for several years. And then once I finished the degree, morphed into a position that opened just naturally as the director of continuing education. So all of our non-accredited programs, also led up the international programs. So my job was to hire and send out instructors to all of our international programs with Thailand, China, a lot of the government entities that we had partnerships with. Did that for a while, got an excellent opportunity most recently to go back out to, go out to Seattle, where I work for the official training center of the Seattle Storm, which is the women's professional basketball team out there. Absolutely love the job. Got to work with really great athletes. Got to work with, a $3 million facility, 18,000 square feet. But Seattle's really depressing. I mean, some people love it because it's beautiful for 3 months, but if you've been there for the other 9 months, it kind of drags on you. And I realized I didn't want to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, despite whatever the pay may be. So I jumped back into academia, moved back to Columbus, saw this position, got a call from Chris Nurse, our HR coordinator, director, and he's like, yeah, do you want to come down for an interview in a week? And I said, I'm looking to get back into academia where I can work with athletes, work with students, control my schedule to a degree. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of hours, but it's definitely, I guess, you feel a lot more fulfilling outcome when you're in education, and it took me realizing that, and that's what led me to this seat.
Wow, that is a diverse background, and you've worked with a lot of different populations in terms of educating those populations. Do you see, because it seems like traditional college students, military students, professional athlete students, they seem very diverse to me, but are there commonalities? I mean, is it at some level, is it you're teaching a person this X, Y, and Z? Do you feel like there's some commonality that runs through all of those groups that you've taught?
Most definitely. I mean, if you go through just the classes that we have here and you see just the diversity in those students, then you go into a military population, which is one of the most diverse populations we have, socioeconomically, culturally, religious, you know, everywhere. It's just a melting pot. And then you apply it to the youth population as well. That's a whole different ballgame. So there are definitely tendencies and constructs that have to be interwoven between the populations. At some point, education is education, but it's to what approach you take with the different populations and how they may adapt to information versus, you know, if you've got an 8-year-old, they're going to respond, they're going to learn, but it's going to be somewhat different than a 40-year-old professional soldier who's been working in his field for 30 years and has been to combat. So short answer, yes, there's definitely a lot that crosses over. The differences are smaller than probably what most people think.
Wow. And so now that you're here, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Tell us about your professional life at Rio.
Sure. I teach 6 courses, so it's a full load. 3 of them are online, which is, you know, kind of my bread and butter, having worked at the United States Sports Academy, which is a 100% online institution. So, and then returning to the classroom in the university setting, similar to the military setting, I also teach 3 courses, sports and exercise concepts, or exercise science concepts, I'm sorry. I also teach nutrition. What else? There's so many. Leadership. I teach a graduate course for leadership. That's one of the beauties about having a diverse background, is I'm credentialed and qualified to teach a lot of stuff, which keeps things interesting for me as well.
Right.
And then I also work with, as a kind of a add-on to my teaching position, I'm the strength conditioning coach for the softball team as well as the women's basketball team.
Wow, and I think that you have a video to show us about
I do,
that work?
yes. I do have a video. We can show that at any time, and I can talk you through what we're looking at, but you'll see the 2 different teams working. So first thing we did was add a dynamic warm-up. It's not that any of our coaches are lacking in experience with physical training, but when you compare it to modern science and the stuff that I've been exposed to, it's just an extra enhancing tool to what they do. We're utilizing our technology here, so that's a jump mat, so we can get assessment numbers to show that the programs are working. These are our girls. Notice they're on one leg, so we don't just lift like power lifters, we lift like athletes to reduce the numbers of injuries, particularly in their knees.
I'm amazed that they did not seem to fall.
Nope, yeah, they've been training for a little bit now. See, and we try to walk that balance of having fun as well. And I'm yelling at her because she has an injury in her back and she's supposed to be doing body weight and she had a plate, so I was very upset with her. She knows better. And again, very unstable, one arm, one leg. This is a lot like what the military population is doing, believe it or not. So while they're not professional soldiers, if they're trained like a professional soldier as far as their body, they're going to be pretty awesome softball and basketball players.
Wow, just watching that, the strength that is demonstrated by some of our athletes, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And also seems to be taken into consider not just strength, but core strength and balance,
Correct.
which I know are also very important, especially to avoid injuries, if I'm correct.
Correct, yeah, and there's a reason that we do a lot of instability work, particularly with the female population. If you haven't seen the research, females are 2 to 10 times more likely to have significant knee injuries requiring a intervention to go in and actually fix the ligaments. So we do unstable surfaces, we do standing on one leg, we use different training modalities like rubber bands and medicine balls that are unstable. So it looks like a lot of lifting we do looks like a physical therapy setting, where if you've ever been hurt, which most of us have, but if you use physical therapy training tools ahead of getting hurt, you're less likely to get hurt. So that's half my focus, is injury prevention, of course. The other half is just making sure that the coach gets a better athlete so that when they have to learn a new skill, they get it like that, and Rio teams dominate.
To follow up on that, When will you start? I mean, I'm sure with the training you've already done, you're noticing a difference individually, but as a team, at what point do you normally notice sort of the fruits of your labor as a team member? Do you say, oh my gosh, I don't just notice this personally, I'm stronger, but look at us as a team?
Yeah, we don't have a really robust exercise science lab quite yet. We are looking into getting a little bit more technology and tools so I can measure objective outcomes as far as pre and post. The proof's in the pudding as far as proper athletic training. If you don't do injury prevention training, you're likely to get injured. So when I'm already talking with our athletic trainer saying, okay, where are our injuries at? What have we had? So if we can reduce those, that's where I start to get fulfilled. That's where the team and the coach says, look, I didn't have to go through, I mean, one of our girls has had three knee surgeries within like a 2-year span.
Wow.
And again, they didn't necessarily have an injury prevention specialist or someone who's abreast to being able to actually make that happen. But yeah, I guess watching them on the field, it's hard to say, look, they're totally different. Now, if you're somebody who hasn't seen them in a while and they just started this season, you will notice a difference.
Okay.
So watching them not get hurt is probably my biggest, most fulfilling goal.
Well, I think we have about a minute, maybe 2 left. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why someone should go into sports and exercise?
Yeah, so sports and exercise studies, a lot of people think it's just for athletes or they think it's just to become a personal trainer. It's just so far from the truth. At the undergraduate level, you could be a strength conditioning coach. I've wrote a couple of professions, an exercise physiologist, a counselor. But if you do decide to go into a graduate and doctorate, I mean, the sky's the limit. You could be a physical therapist. We have a lot of people who are looking into physical therapy. So anything within the exercise science and sports world is what our program prepares you for.
That sounds great. And it sounds like it's a really dynamic, exciting program. I know you and Professor Katie Molesky are doing great work.
Yes.
And the students really appreciate your programs. I'm always hearing positive things about the sports and exercise management program. So I look forward to seeing where it goes in the future. And usually, I don't know if anyone's talked to you about the annual Research and Scholarship Exhibition Day, but we often have some sports and exercise management students presenting some of that great research that they're doing. So hope to see some of those students in their spring again.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, Corey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
All right, thank you for having me.
Sure. So always something new and exciting here at RIO, whether it is a new program or a new course or a new faculty member. This last spring, for at least the first time since I can remember, and I've been here 11 years, we had a group of students who got to take an international trip, a service learning trip, and I know that we have students who go abroad a lot. They go to Wales. We had a student go to China in the spring. This group of students did some service learning in Jamaica with Dr. Kay-Ann Darlington, one of our communication faculty, and Dr. Darlington is here with me today. Hi, Kay-Ann, how are you?
Hi, Dean Duda. It's good to be here. I'm well.
Well, I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
And I'm excited. I know that we talked with you, gosh, a couple years ago now when you were a new faculty revising the communication program. And now one of the elements of the revised program is service learning, or at least a service learning opportunity. Can you tell us a little bit about how this opportunity came to be, and then tell us a little bit about where you went and who went and what you did?
Okay. I'll start by, as you said, going back to the program revision that we did. Part of what we noticed was that students were not really getting as much experience as we'd like them to have, because most entry-level jobs want you to have 2 to 3 years of experience. So one of our goals is to make sure that our communication program graduates have more experience going out into the field, like actually applying what they're learning in class and seeing that communication has practical applications. So Dr. Crooks and I had discussed the possibility of having students either do an internship or service learning. Although we haven't put that in as a requirement as yet, we said, okay, let's try and see if we can have them do the service learning portion. So I decided on applying for a grant at the Ohio Association of Two-Year Colleges. They have a grant it's a teaching grant, and the grant that I applied for allowed me to create the service learning course. And then I also applied for the provost Academic Excellence Initiative grant. And that one went specifically to helping the students to go on the service learning trip abroad. So it was a twofold process. So in fall of last year, I started working on the course and consulting with other faculty, like Dr. Ann Sparks, who's been teaching service learning, to get a feel for what would be a good way to help students to see the practical applications of communication. After doing some research and talking with other faculty, I developed the course and offered it in spring. And then I also offered the service learning trip to Jamaica as an extension for those students who were interested. It wasn't a requirement because of the cost of an international trip. Granted, it was a lot cheaper than it would have been without the grant that I got. But even then, it was still a little bit expensive for our students. So although I had interest from 15 students, we only ended up going with a group of 3. But I think it was, for me, a really good experience because the students ended up, it was a smaller group and it was more manageable. And it was also my first trip with students going abroad. So it worked out to be just the right number of students, and the experience was great.
Now, I know that you brought some pictures with you. Can we show the pictures and you tell us a little bit about what's going on and take us through the project?
Sure. So this is a picture of Stones Hope. This is the property. The name is, the name of the organization is Stones Hope, but that's also the name of the property.
So you were connected to an organization in Jamaica?
Yes, so we worked with Stones Hope organization, and it is a private charitable organization that deals with a number of social issues, one of them being helping children to access education, and just working with students to help them do better. So this is one of our students, Devon. He's actually graduated from Rio now, and he was working with a student one-on-one. He was assigned to work with a student, as was Mallory. She's also another communication major, Mallory Crum. This is Jason. He was a part of the course, but he wasn't a comm major, and he also went on the trip. So when we went to Stones Hope, one of the first things they asked us to do was to just provide some help with the classes, because sometimes some of the students might need additional help. This is just Devon having fun with the students. So they did a good bit of one-on-one work. We also found some time for typical Jamaican relaxation. This was at a beach near to where the organization was. So we went out one evening for dinner, and we were playing games. This is on the property where we were, and we were just talking with one of the students. The young lady in the pink is a student, and then one of the guardians who work with the students. Some of the students do live on the campus because they either live too far away or they do not live with their parents anymore. So some of their guardians there. Apart from working with the school, we also went out into the community of Mandeville. We worked with Friends in Need organization to provide food and clothing to homeless folks in Mandeville. So we did that one day. We prepared the food and brought it and shared it. We also went to an orphanage and helped to clean up the space.
I was going to say, it looked like you were working with cribs in a couple of these pictures.
Yes, so this is when we were at the orphanage. They were in the process of just, it wouldn't be a spring cleaning, I guess, but similar, just refreshing the place. So we offered help with painting and also just helping any way we could. This is also Mallory with the students. I think this was pretty close to when we were leaving. Of course, they were sad to see us leave, but they were happy for the help that we could provide.
And how many days were you there?
We were in Jamaica for 8 days, and we spent 6 of those days at Stones Hope and doing stuff in Mandeville. And then, of course, you can't go to Jamaica without having some fun. So I took them to YS Falls, and those are the students getting ready to jump.
Okay.
Yes, it was a scary experience for me.
I was going to say, did you jump as well?
Oh no, no. I cannot swim very well, so I did not jump. And despite it was safe. They had folks on hand to help them climb the falls, and it wasn't a deep pool, so they wouldn't have hurt themselves.
And that last picture, where was that?
That was in Montego Bay. That's the view from our hotel in Montego Bay.
Okay.
So we were up high, but it's a quick walk down to get to the beach, as you can see. So they also had a couple days in Montego Bay just to relax and enjoy the beach and have fun. And I will say that the students, in their reflection, said that it was a life-changing experience. And they said that even about the service learning course, right? Just being able to see what they can do with the communication skills that they have. What I liked about it was the variety of programs and departments that they worked with. So we had students working with the Area Agency on Aging. We also had students working with Mike, working on TV production. We had students working with Dina Warren on the sexual assault prevention program. And in the library, it was a wide range. And what we talked about when we met for class, because we met one day a week and then they had to do the other hours outside of class. When we met for class, one of the things that they always brought up in our discussion was that it's just good to actually see the skills that you're learning. Like, you can read about it and you know theoretically what to do, but when you're out there in the world and actually doing it, it's an amazing feeling. So they were really appreciative of that opportunity to get the experience.
It sounds like it was definitely a vibrant, engaging experience for the students. Do you want to, I know that you're interested in doing the service learning class again. Obviously, that is an important element of the students' time here at Rio. But what about Jamaica again? Are you thinking of doing it again?
I am. Not next year, maybe in a couple of years, because it takes a good bit of time and planning, and I want to start advertising it early enough so I get a more diverse group of students, because the folks that we're working with, they can benefit from any student. It would be good to have students who are education majors, because they have a school and they would definitely benefit from small training exercises, or even students who could get some credit for working with the students in Jamaica. We could benefit also from people who are in nursing, people who are in the health field, exercise physiology. I feel like any student would be able to apply what they're learning in the classroom on a service learning trip, because again, it's also not just about their skills, but also inculcating this idea of providing service, even when you're not being paid for it.
Right.
You know, it allows you to get experience, but service in and of itself is a worthy goal for a student. So I feel like it would definitely be an opportunity for Rio students to extend their wings and go see another place.
I like the way you say that. Now, you mentioned students did reflections. So in addition to the work they did when they were traveling, it sounds like you had a written component to the class?
Yes, there was a written component for the whole semester as well as for the trip abroad. I wanted them to reflect because I feel like reflecting is a great component of the way that we learn, but many teachers don't require it of students. So even for this service learning course, when I told them that they'd have to write weekly reflections, they were like, what are we going to reflect about? So the initial few sessions, I gave them some questions just to guide them so that they would know what to look for in their experience and what to make note of. And it really helped them, because they were like, well, I don't know what to write, of course. And just having a few questions to guide you will be, it's amazing how much the students will write when they have some kind of guide. So I provided a little guide for them and they used it, and I feel like they definitely benefited from the reflection, probably as much as from the experiences, because then they're not just doing it, right? They're thinking about what they're doing, they're thinking about how they're doing it and how it applies to their life. And so the reflection component was definitely a very useful part of the course.
Without naming any names and to put you on the spot, can you think of some of the more memorable moments from the reflections? You mentioned that a lot of them said that the experience with service learning, whether it was locally or internationally, was life-changing. Can you think of any of the observations that students made that maybe stand out most in your mind?
I'd say what stands out most in my mind is one student who was initially unhappy with their placement because you did get to choose somewhat, but I think there were a couple students who ended up getting what they thought of as undesirable placements, like they didn't want to go work with the organization or the department. And one student in her reflection was very clear in that she wasn't very happy with the placement at the beginning, but they were able to work with someone who is actually a RIO communication program graduate. So that turned out to be probably the best placement for her because this is someone who has a degree in communication from RIO. And I had met with the person and explained the goal, and it actually gave her, the student, an opportunity to work on a project by herself, which is, I kind of require that of the placement. And she was just, the student was just amazed at how much she grew in one semester under the guidance of someone who knows what she's doing. So it was really, really good to see that model work. You know, you want to send students out, but you're like, oh my gosh, is their supervisor going to work with them? Is it going to all come together? So just, and I think even at the end of the course when we talked about it, we had a little get together and we just talked about our experiences. One student also pointed out that they were hesitant to work on, it was a male student and he was working on the sexual assault prevention video, and he was quite hesitant because he's like, as a man, I don't see the, why should I work on this? But by the end of the course, he saw the relevance and saw that his skills were applicable. And he was really grateful for the opportunity to do it. So I feel like on a whole, the students had a really great experience, and I'm looking forward to teaching the course again.
Well, it sounds like those two student experiences are really strong and compelling reasons why students should do service learning when they're at RIO, because what a wonderful experience to not only see where your academic experience is relevant to the professional life you hope to lead, but also to have the opportunity to meet others who have been there and been on the path on which you are embarking. And so what a great, great argument for service learning.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Kayan, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you sharing the experience and the pictures. I love the pictures, and now I think I want to go, I want to sign up for your service learning class, and I want to work here on campus and also in the world.
Yeah.
So thank you again for being with us on another episode of Voice of RIO. I'm Dean Heather Duda, and I'm wishing you well until next time.
Thank you for having me.